electronic meeting of the City Council. We are meeting electronically due to the COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic in accordance with Governor Sunnunu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04. Please note that in accordance with the Governor's Emergency Order, we have provided public notice of the necessary information for accessing this meeting. Instructions are provided on our agenda on the City of Concord's website at concordnh.legstar.com/calendar.aspx. We are utilizing the Zoom platform for this electronic meeting. All members of the City Council have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting, and the public has access to listen and, if necessary, participate in meeting through clicking on the following website address: us02web.zoom.us/j/81204172709. If any member of the public does not have website access, they may dial telephone number 1-929-205-6099. If dialing from a landline, you may call in at toll-free at 877-853-5257. The webinar ID number is 812-0417-2709. For those of you who want to provide public testimony in the public hearing portion of the meeting and you are connected to the Zoom website, you may click on the raised hand icon in the attendees section to make the request. When time is appropriate, you'll be recognized by me and you can provide your testimony. For members of the public who are participating by phone, you may dial *9 to alert me that you want to testify. We will not be using the chat function in the Zoom meeting for this meeting. Not using the chat function in Zoom for this meeting. Please note that testimony is only allowed for agenda items that have been scheduled for the public hearing, and public participation is not authorized for other items on the agenda. If anyone has a problem accessing the meeting, please call 603-230-3718 or send an email to concordcitycouncilmeeting@gmail.com. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting, we will adjourn the meeting and have it rescheduled at that time. Please note that all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. When you state your presence at the meeting, please also state whether there is anyone in the room with you during this meeting, which is required under the right to know law. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Councillor Bouchard.
Present, home alone in a room by myself.
Mayor Boulay.
Present in my office alone.
Councillor Champlin.
Present in a room in my house by myself.
Councillor Fennessy.
I'm here. I am in a room at my house by myself.
Councillor Grady Sexton.
I am present. I am at my home with my family.
Councillor Hatfield.
I'm here alone in a room in my house.
Councillor Keach. He's not here. Okay. Councillor Kennison.
Present at home alone.
Councillor Kretovic.
Present at home and my family is in the house.
Councillor Matson.
I'm here. I am home alone at my home.
Councillor Nyman.
Present at home alone.
Councillor Pierce.
Present at home alone.
Councillor Rice-Hawkins.
Present alone in this room in my home.
Councillor Todd.
Here at home alone in this room.
And Councillor Warner.
Here at home alone in this room.
Thank you.
Great. Good to see everyone. A reminder for the public, if you have a question or any trouble accessing this meeting, please call 603-230-3718 or send an email to concordcitycouncilmeeting@gmail.com. Ideally, if you could please mute yourself when you're not speaking, please click on the raise hand icon in the participant section of your Zoom screen. And that concludes the must-do reads. So we will start with the invocation, and I would like to bring into the meeting Rajan Zed, who's president of the Universal Society of Hinduism. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. I can't see myself.
Can you see me?
We cannot, but we sure can hear you.
Okay. So, okay, I will just say the prayer then. My hearty thanks to Mayor Jim Wally, councillors and city manager Espel for scheduling me to read invocation for the great city of Concord. I shall be reading in Sanskrit from ancient Sanskrit scriptures, some as old as 1500 BCE, and then interpret in English. Om Bhur Svah Tat Savitur Varenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhiyo Yo Na Prachodayat. We meditate on the transcendental glory of the Deity Supreme, who's inside the heart of the earth, inside the life of the sky, and inside the soul of the heaven. May He stimulate and illuminate our minds. Astoma Sadgamya Tamsoma Jyotirgamya Mrityor Mamratam Gamya. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Tasmada Sakta Statam Karyam Karma Samachara. Asakto hai Sharan Karma Parma Panauti Purusha. Karma Nevahi Samsiddhi Masita Jankadya. Loka Sangreha Mevapi Sampashankar Tumrahasi. Strive constantly to serve the welfare of the world by devotion to selfless. One attain the supreme goal of life. Do your work with the welfare of others always in mind. Om Saha Navavatu, Saha Nobunaktu, Saha Viren Karba Bahai, Tejasvi Navadita Mastu, Ma Vidvisa Bahai. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with great vigor. May our study be enlightening. May no obstacle arise between us. Samni va kuti samna hirdayani va samnamastu vo mano yatha va susa hasti. United your resolve, united your hearts. May your spirits be at one, that you may long together dwell in unity and concord. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Om. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to have the Pledge of Allegiance. So you get to all unmute now. Ready? All right. I pledge allegiance to the
flag
United
of the United States of America,
America,
And
To the
Republic
Republic
and
for which it
which it
stands,
one
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 nation,
nation, under God,
indivisible,
with liberty
with liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
Justice
for
for
all.
all.
We are getting better each time.
That's why we don't sing on Zoom.
Too kind, too kind.
We have the minutes before us for the February 8th City Council minutes. Anybody have any comments or a motion?
I move
Move approve. Second?
Okay, I have a motion to approve and motion has been duly seconded. Any comments? Seeing none? Madam Clerk, if you call the roll.
Counselor Bouchard,
yes,
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Counselor Champlin,
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy,
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton,
yes.
Counselor Hatfield,
yes.
Counselor Kennison,
Yes.
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Matson,
Yes.
Counselor Nyan,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Yes.
And the motion is adopted. With that, we have our consent agenda before us. I see nothing has been removed from the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move approval.
Motion made, seconded to approve the consent agenda. Last chance. Anybody want to take anything off? Did you get a chance? Okay, seeing no one. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Counselor Bouchard,
yes,
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Counselor Champlin,
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy,
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Counselor Hatfield,
Yes.
Counselor Kennison,
Yes.
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Mattson,
Yes.
Counselor Nine,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Yes.
Okay, with that, motion is adopted. So that brings us this evening to our public hearings. Would anybody be opposed if we combined item 23A, B, C, E, D, and E? All of them deal with the same topic, and I thought it might make more sense for the public wishing to testify if they could testify on any or all at the same time, because I think it might be confusing. Do I want to testify on the development agreement? Do I want to testify on the guarantee? Do I want to testify on the TIF? And if we just kind of, since it's all one big project, maybe just put them all together. Would that be acceptable to everyone?
Makes sense.
Yes.
Yes.
So, Madam Clerk, I apologize right up front, but if you could read item 23A through 23E.
Sounds perfect. Here we go. 23A is a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a development agreement with Interchange Development LLC concerning CIP number 30, Hoyt Road, Whitney Road, intersection improvement project. Next item is a resolution authorizing the city manager to accept a corporate guarantee from Demoulas Supermarkets Incorporated concerning construction of a grocery store at property located on Whitney Road. Then there's a resolution adopting an amended and restated development program and finance plan for the Penacook Village Tax Increment Finance District, TIF. Then there's a resolution appropriating the sum of $4,780,000 for the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection improvement project, CIP number 30, authorizing the issuance of Penacook Village TIF district supported bonds and notes in the sum of $4,240,000 for this purpose, authorizing the use of $90,750 in impact fees for this purpose, accepting $449,250 in donations for this purpose, transferring $193,456 in expenses from the General Capital Projects Fund to the Penacook Village TIF District Capital Fund for this purpose, rescinding the appropriation of $456,000 for the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection improvement sum project, CIP number 30, and deauthorizing the issuance of general fund supported bonds and notes in the amount of $456,000. Last but not least, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into a maintenance agreement with the New Hampshire Department of Transportation concerning certain infrastructure improvements associated with CIP number 30, Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection improvement project located within the US Route 4 right-of-way.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, before I let you go, could you just, the only change I see from last week, you did receive additional testimony regarding item 23D. Is that correct?
That is correct. For public testimony, you also received a supplemental report for item 23C.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, with that, Mr. Manager, floor is yours.
Your Honor, members of the council, Mr. Walsh has a presentation that he would like to do for all of these and laying out the whole project and the pieces to it. So I'd let Mr. Walsh go forward with that.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. I can see you. I do have a PowerPoint presentation I can run through, but I haven't been brought into the meeting to do that. So I don't know if I can be brought in as a panelist. Share my screen.
Mr. LeBron is the one who has the power to do that. So
give me just a moment here. I have to take you out and bring you back in.
Hey, I am back in the meeting. Again, good evening, everybody. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay with you, Your Honor.
Please.
And I presume everybody can see that on their screens.
Yes.
So just walking us through, this is a very exciting project. A lot of work has gone into it over the last couple of years, longer than that actually, as the council knows. And all the items that the clerk read tonight, you're having your public hearing this evening, but you're going to delay action until April 12th on the public hearings because this involves an amendment of a TIF district or a tax increment finance district. And therefore, in accordance with the state law, which is RSA 162K, you have to wait 15 days until after your public hearing. There's two parts to the presentation. The first one's going to be an overview of the development agreement with Interchange Development LLC, as well as CIP 30, which is the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection improvements. On your screen, you will see an overview of property that is owned by Interchange Development LLC, which is on the right-hand side. They own 43 acres. Interchange Development LLC is Lori and David Rossio, who are residents of Canterbury, who are real estate entrepreneurs, and they own Concord Crossing across the street, as well as the Extra Mart convenience store. They developed that approximately 10 years ago now. The Rossios, through Interchange Development, are proposing to develop their 43 acres into a new project, which will be commercial and industrial in nature, retail, restaurant, service uses, potentially medical office, and future industrial on the portion that abuts the Wheelabrator waste energy facility on the south side of the property. The area that is in red is phase one of their project, which involves a basically 80,000 square foot grocery store, which will be developed by Demula Supermarkets and run and operate as a market basket. An attached potential retail tenant to the grocery store, which is about 20,000 square feet, and a 13,500 square foot liquor store, which will be developed by the Rossios, owned by the Rossios, and leased to the New Hampshire Liquor Commission. In order to support this project and really any other development that might come along in the Whitney Road corridor further south, there needs to be an extensive infrastructure improvement, which we have been calling CIP 30, which is the Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection improvement. It's $4.78 million. It's been in our capital improvement program for many years, and it's particularly challenging because this involves improvements in the town of Canterbury, improvements in the city of Concord, and improvements to a federal highway, which is under the jurisdiction of the New Hampshire DOT, which is Route 4, as well as improvements to the on-ramp of I-93. So it's incredibly challenging when you have that juxtaposition of various governments that are involved in such a close area with control over a project. This project we have attempted to get into the state's transportation improvement plan called the STIP for many years, at least a decade, and that has never been successful. That was our goal, was to try to have the state of New Hampshire actually build this, and unfortunately that never came to pass. The Rossios are prepared to move forward with their project, phase one. They have received planning board approval and are prepared to go forward. The improvements that the city would be building are shown on the screen as well. Primarily, it is a roundabout at the intersection of Whitney Road, Old Boyce Road, which is also in Concord, and Route 4, which is Hoyt Road. Improvements to the on-ramp, as I mentioned, to I-93. Essentially, we're going to get rid of that long thoroughfare straight shot onto the interstate and create something that's a little more traffic calming, a little bit safer. That's being required by the Department of Transportation. There's also improvements on Whitney Road itself. You notice a smaller roundabout at the entrance of the development, as well as Concord Crossing. This is being recommended by the transportation engineers to support the development, but also to help facilitate traffic when or if Whitney Road is ever extended to Sewell's Falls sometime in the future, which is also in our capital improvement program. And then some improvements that are located in the town of Canterbury, which are primarily pedestrian in nature and adding of turn lanes and dealing with the intersection of Hannah Dustin Drive, which the intersection is in Canterbury, but Hannah Dustin Drive by and large is actually in Concord. So that's the overview of the project. Again, phase one, we've already described it. Essentially, it's going to generate 438 new jobs when it comes together. The assessed value that's projected in total is about $12.145 million. That's a fiscal 24 projection. The existing tax revenue or assessed value of that property is about 2.7 million. The new that will be created is about 9.4 million. Altogether, it will generate about $378,000 a year in taxes for phase one, which about 293 of that would be new. I would note that this is only for phase one of the Rossio project. It doesn't include the balance of their development on the other acreage that's at their property. So this is just for phase one. A quick review of the responsibilities of the parties. Essentially, the city's job is to build or design, permit, and build CIP 30, which I described to you earlier. That's our responsibility. The developer's job is to make sure that phase one of their project gets built. They're going to make a financial payment for all the improvements in Canterbury, which we estimate to be about $450,000. They're providing right-of-way to actually make sure we can build this project. They are going to be constructing some sidewalks on Whitney Road, basically south of the roundabout entrance into their project, down towards Wheeler. They're going to be doing winter maintenance of the sidewalk system on Whitney Road between Route 4 and Wheeler on their side of the street. And they will be maintaining all the landscaping in the smaller roundabout that's at the entrance to their driveway and Concord Crossing as part of our development agreement. There are numerous protections in the agreement to protect the city and its taxpayers to make sure if anything goes wrong, we're in a position. There's short-term and long-term. The short-term ones are, there's an expenditure cap. And our share of this project, even though it's 4.78 million, the city's share is about 4.33 million. So in the event that we will go over that 4.33 million when we bid the project, we do not have to move forward. We have no obligation to start construction of the project until 14 different conditions in the development agreement are satisfied by the developer. These include permits and approvals being in place, getting building permits, making sure they have construction contracts with their contractor, making sure their financing is in place, making sure their lease agreements are in place. So it's very onerous. We want to make sure that all those are in place so there's little opportunity for the project to go wrong once it starts. In addition, there's a performance mortgage on the liquor store that basically guarantees that the liquor store will be constructed. It has to happen in 14 months after a building permit's issued. And it binds the lender for the liquor store in the event they ever foreclose on that project while it's under construction to actually finish it or sell it to somebody who will finish it. So again, making sure the project's there and the tax revenue's there. There's also a corporate guarantee from Market Basket that guarantees they will have a grocery store there up and operational within 2 years, subject to any delays that might happen with the city's public improvements, which they're relying on, or any improvements on site, which the Rossios are going to be building for Market Basket. In the long term, there's a taxability covenant on all 43 acres that would require that any tax exempt entity that might come to own any portion of that 43 acres that the Rossios have will be fully taxable. And there's also a requirement that there's a minimum payment guarantee for property taxes that runs for 20 years. When that is fully in place in year 24, that guarantee is for $378,150 annually. The schedule is we're on track to have the council make a decision on all of this in April. If the decision is favorable, everything will be finalized on the city side as well as the developer side. And hopefully we will have bids at that point for our project. We have not gotten out the bid yet, which I'll explain momentarily. We're looking forward to starting in May or June. We believe we will have the larger roundabout on Route 4 operational by the end of the year. That's important for the liquor store. It's not required for the liquor store, but it's important for the liquor store and definitely for Market Basket. And then the smaller roundabout will come in the spring with the rest of the improvements in 22. We believe the liquor store will be open sometime in early 22. Our improvement will be finished in the summer of 22, and Market Basket would come along in the fall of 22 or early 23. As I mentioned, there are a few items that are still in flux, one of them being our bids. This project is subject to a New Hampshire Department of Transportation driveway permit because we're modifying a state roadway. and Hoyt Road is under their jurisdiction. We've been working with DOT on the design really ever since the council approved funds back in the summer, July of 2020, to start designing and permitting this. DOT has raised some last minute issues relative to our drainage design, and we are working with them on that and other items. However, until those drainage design items are worked out, we can't really bid the project. We finish our permitting process at our wetlands permit and our alteration of terrain permit, which is currently pending. They've been filed at the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, but we are waiting on them to be perfected because of drainage design changes, perhaps. The other thing the council should be aware of is as part of our driveway permit with the New Hampshire DOT, we're going to be required to enter into a maintenance agreement with them concerning landscaping for the large roundabout on Route 4, maintenance of pedestrian infrastructure, items like that. There are some items that are still have not been resolved with DOT that are listed on the screen. So therefore that item is still in flux, and it might change our projected operating costs for these improvements, which is currently $24,000. We'll keep the council posted about that. So both of those things, not both of those things, I should say, the driveway permit is really delaying the bid process, and the maintenance agreement will come in the not too distant future. Part 2 of all of this is related to the Penacook Village Tax Increment Finance District. As the council knows, we created the Penacook TIF district in 2010. It's shown there on the screen. It was primarily designed to support redevelopment of the former Allied Leather Tannery site in Rivco. It is 47 acres, and it has been doing its job. It has been successful with respect to Allied Leather. Part 1 of the TIF amendments that you have before you is related to Allied Leather, and it is to finish out that project with the construction of a new riverfront park. This is currently in the capital improvement program as project 567. It is estimated to be about $1.35 million. The community, ever since the city got involved with Allied Leather nearly 20 years ago now, has expressed an interest in having a riverfront park at this location. It's been in the capital improvement program. However, it's never been in the development program and financing plan for the TIF district. So it's been incorporated into the documents that you have that will pave the way for using the TIF, if the council so wishes, to finance and operate the park. We're talking about design in 22 or 23, construction in 23, 24 perhaps. There's an estimate there about operating cost and debt service. And our goal is to try and bring in other funding sources to minimize the amount of TIF money that is actually put into this particular improvement, when or if the city may go forward with it. You have no appropriation request for this at the present time in front of you as part of anything that you're talking about tonight. Rather, it's just updating those documents to create the opportunity to use the TIF in the future if the council so wants. The other improvements are all related to CIP 30, or amendments, I should say, are related to CIP 30 for Hoyt Road, Whitney Road intersection, which we've already talked about. In order to use the TIF to support that project, we have to expand the TIF. So we are going to grow the TIF from its current 47 acres to about 243. You can see some statistics there on the screen. We're going to go from about 48 parcels to 74, and some financing numbers there. Right now in the TIF district, as it is, we've done about $6.1 million of investment. Only $455,000 of that's been supported by the TIF, which would be TIF capital transfer or bond. Once we go forward with Exit 17 and Hoyt Whitney Road, that investment will grow to just under $11 million, of which 4.7 or so will be directly supported by the TIF, and the rest of it is all from other funding sources. You can also see how the operating budget of the TIF district will grow to support the new debt service and operating expenses of the Route 4 improvements. The appropriation before you, $4.78 million to build it. It's really 2 TIF bonds. The bond that the council approved back in July for design, $456,000, is going to be rescinded and replaced with a new $412,750 TIF bond for design, which will have a 5-year term. There's a $3.8 million bond for construction. Other funds coming in are impact fees and contributions from the Rossios for the Canterbury improvements. The operating cost of the district in the first 5 years will be around $245,000, as you can see on the other side of the screen. Once the initial design bond is paid off in 5 years, that cost will go down considerably, and the project will cash flow nicely. Again, just a quick refresher. Phase 1, the liquor store and the grocery store, valued around $12.1 million. On the left-hand side of the screen, the red arrows, the base value of that will continue, the assessed value and the taxes associated with that base value will continue to flow to the city's general fund, Merrimack Valley School District, the county, and the state of New Hampshire. The arrows on the right-hand side of the screen in blue, those numbers, the new incremental assessed value of about $9.4 million and the tax revenues associated with it will flow will be captured by the TIF district to support the debt service and operating costs affiliated with CIP 30 until that debt is paid off. This screen is basically a graph that shows the blue line is working capital or fund balance for the Penacook Village TIF district. The red line is debt service. And as the council knows and is laid out in the TIF amendment, the TIF district will endure until all of its debt service obligations are repaid. That includes debt service on this new project, as well as other investments that the city has made in the TIF district. Presently, we're projecting that the TIF could go out to fiscal year 2044 based on the debt service obligations that we're going to have for CIP 30. However, there might be an opportunity to expedite termination of the district. Right now, it's suggesting that could be around fiscal year 2037. And essentially, that's the year that fund balance will equal the amount of outstanding debt service that the district will have. So if the district performs as we have in our pro formas, that is a possibility. However, I would also note that there are critical assumptions that are driving that possibility, and the council and the public should be aware of them. The first one is the TIF district is not presuming any investments at this time for CIP 502, which is extension of Whitney Road South to Sewell's Falls, which you can see on the graphic on the screen, to Concord Monitor. So obviously, if we ever decide to expand the TIF, which doesn't include that area at this time, and there's additional investment the TIF would have to make. There's also additional tax value that would be created. So therefore, it would change the pro forma and potentially the termination date of the TIF district. We're not proposing at this time to release any assessed value to any of the taxing authorities, any of the incremental assessed value, I should say, or tax revenue associated therewith, to the general fund, the Merrimack Valley School District, the county, or the state of New Hampshire. That is the city's standard operating procedure, and how we run our TIF districts and how we have really since 1979 when TIF was created. I would note that there's always the opportunity in the future to examine release of incremental assessed value and property tax revenue to support those entities, as we do with the North End Opportunity Corridor TIF district, which releases $1 million a year right now because its revenues vastly exceed its obligations. There is our pro forma and excludes any additional development at Exit 17, the Rossio project. They're talking with other parties, but right now we don't know what those will be or exactly what it will be. So that's excluded, and we're only banking on the portions of the project that we know are real and will happen, which are the grocery store and liquor store. And then the last bit, obviously, is macroeconomic factors. Any changes in interest rates, any changes in the real estate market, things like that drive the TIF pro forma and could affect our assumptions. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going to stop talking to myself and I'll mute. Mr. Walsh, thank you. That was thorough as always. We have several questions. First, I'll recognize Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, for a nice presentation laying out everything. I just wanted to clarify some of the assumptions that you made with respect to the TIF district, which I think you laid out. The calculation of the payoff time period, I think you said does not or assumes that we're looking at just phase one of the project. So it doesn't incorporate any of the potential increase in property value that could come from additional development on that site. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilor Fennessy. There's another 100,000 square feet or so that the Rossios are going to build beyond the grocery store and the liquor store. That is not included in the pro forma at this time because we have an indication of what that is, but we don't know exactly what it will be or when it will come to pass. So it's excluded.
And then I think another point that you raised in that last slide was with respect to Whitney Road extension, which I believe is a CIP that we have currently. At this point, at least, the calculation of the payoff date doesn't anticipate, number one, that we would be expending any future money there, but also doesn't realize any of the potential increase in property value either.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Chamberlain.
Thank you, Your Honor. Yeah, I'd like to add my thanks to Mr. Walsh to a very thorough presentation. Two questions that have been raised by the public in some of the comments that we've received revolve around, no pun intended, the roundabout. Why we're building a roundabout rather than traffic signaling it, an intersection with traffic signals. And the second is the changes to the on-ramp onto I-93. Could you clarify why we're doing one and why we're doing the other?
My high-level answer would be we looked at a signalized intersection as well as a roundabout at this location. The transportation engineers that were involved working with our engineering department, Mr. Cedarholm, as well as Mr. Bahia and the community development department, it was determined that the roundabout would be a better way of moving traffic through the intersection safely and providing more capacity at that intersection than the other alternative. And I would yield to Mr. Cedarholm or somebody else from the community development department to respond to that. And I'm sorry, what was your second question, Councilor? I've lost track of it.
Not surprising, the way I ask questions. The on-ramp, why are we reconfiguring the on-ramp?
The on-ramp is being reconfigured basically as a requirement of the New Hampshire Department of Transportation relative to our improvements. They want to see that as part of the improvements to improve safety getting on to 93 and just general traffic flow with our improvement.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Hatfield.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. Some of the comments we've received have raised questions about how much money the city is putting into the project. And I was wondering if you could speak to why we aren't requiring the developers to contribute more to the total cost.
We've negotiated with the developers for the last several months. They have stepped up and are willing to support the cost of the improvements in Canterbury because obviously that's not in the city of Concord. It makes it very challenging for us to spend money that's not in the city of Concord, and using TIF in Canterbury is not a feasible option. We've worked with them to the extent that we can. We think we have a reasonable deal. I mean, we'd always like to see if there's more. We always like to have the opportunity to try and push more costs onto the developer, but also it doesn't make sense for the developer anymore. So I think what we have here is a good public-private partnership. And I would also note that, but for the TIF's support of this, the project would not happen. The economic development benefits that come with it would not happen. The jobs in the short term, the benefit of having a grocery store there and more shopping would not come in the short term. And in the longer term, you would not get the tax benefits that will come from the new assessed value that will be created there. So that's the city's return on investment.
Thank you. Is it okay if I go on, Your Honor?
Please.
Another question has been why isn't money returning to the Merrimack Valley School District sooner? And I wonder if you could talk about that.
So the TIF documents actually get into this a little bit. It's section 5.6 of the development program and financing plan, as well as section 6.8. And essentially, what we're doing, and we have always done this, the city has with all of its TIF district, is capture all of the revenue associated with the new development that gets built in the district. All of the base value still flows to the city and the school district, the county, and the state of New Hampshire, but the new incremental value gets captured by the TIF district to pay down our debt service and operating costs on the improvements. And we are doing this in the long term for tax base expansion and property tax relief and stabilization. And it's our intention to benefit all the taxing authorities over time. However, rather than releasing it prematurely, we hold on to it until the TIF district gets to a point where we know it's financially viable and starts generating significant surplus revenues annually. And then we look at starting to release a portion of the incremental assessed value and the tax revenues that go with it to benefit the other taxing authorities like the Merrimack Valley School District. And as I alluded to earlier, we've been doing this with our North End Opportunity Corridor TIF district, which is down near the Grapponi Conference Center. And that district, which was formed 20 years ago, has been releasing assessed value really since 2006. And over time, it's released about $9 million, a little more than that actually to date since 2006. We intend to try and to get the Penacook Village TIF district to the same place, but it also needs to make the investments it needs to make and make sure those revenues there are to pay for those investments before we can start releasing the value. So we're concerned that any premature release could threaten the financial viability of the TIF district, which would mean that the taxpayers would have to pick up the cost of the debt service and property taxes, which they are not going to have to do directly now because the TIF is paying for it. So that's why we structure our districts the way we do.
Very helpful. Just one last one, Your Honor. I was wondering if you could speak to accessibility to the area for folks who might be on bicycles or on foot trying to access the shopping, and how the roundabouts will be configured to take that into account.
There are pedestrian amenities that are included as part of the project, sidewalk improvements. Bicyclists have been accounted for in that and how we've designed some of those improvements. So we're trying to build a multimodal transportation improvement that not just works for cars, but it will also work for cyclists and pedestrians.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Mr. Walsh. So if I'm hearing you correctly, a big point about the balance between a TIF and other forms of bonding and the like is, while the new tax revenues are sequestered to help pay down the debt, all these infrastructure improvements are being made without any increase in taxes. Is that correct?
That is correct, Councilor Pierce. You're absolutely right.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Chaplin.
Your Honor, just to follow up on Councilor Pierce's question, do you have a rough back of the napkin estimate of what the impact would be on the tax rate if we were to bond it rather than extend the TIF?
I don't have that for you tonight, no.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions? Mr. Spell.
Would you like to bring the city engineer in to talk about the roundabout versus the signal and the ramps?
Anyone?
I'd like to hear that, Your Honor.
Okay, you could please do that. That'd be great.
Brian, could you bring in David Cedarholm?
Yes, I will.
Thank you.
Good evening and welcome.
Hello, this is Dave Cedarholm. Can you hear me?
We sure can. Welcome. Did you hear the question?
Thank you. Yes, Your Honor. The question was, I think, why was the roundabout preferred over a signaled intersection? And there were a couple of reasons. The signaled intersection would have been a 6-lane intersection, 2 lanes in each direction and a left turn lane. And pretty much everyone was in agreement that that was less attractive than a roundabout. Also, the roundabout, the traffic flows much slower through a roundabout than in the green phase of a signaled intersection. Imagine 4 lanes of traffic breezing through an intersection at 40 or 50 miles an hour. So the traffic accidents in an intersection like that are much more horrific than in a roundabout. And I think that was, I think those are really the 2 main points. Also, the queue length in a signaled intersection in each direction at times could be 400 or 500 feet long. And although you may have queue lengths in a roundabout, it's always a moving flow. And so DOT was in much more favor of the roundabout, as were we. So I think I think that pretty much covered it. Does that answer the question, Councilor Champlin?
That does, Mr. Cedarholm. Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
David, could you also talk about the I-93 ramp?
Oh, yes. Yeah. So the I-93 ramp, a couple of things. Currently, the traffic headed towards that ramp travels at a very fast distance, and then they try to merge with the traffic that is headed westbound and turning left onto the southbound on-ramp. And so those cars have to stop and jump into the gaps of the cars that are flying through at a pretty good clip. Also, by moving the entrance to that southbound on-ramp for eastbound cars, it provides a much longer merge distance. So imagine it's a 2-lane roundabout, so you'll have 2 lanes of vehicles coming out of the roundabout, and the preference will likely be people will want to mostly the cars will be headed towards that southbound on-ramp. So by moving that entrance farther east, it provides a longer merge distance to allow those cars to blend and get into that right turn lane.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Engineer. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're welcome. Have a good night.
Good. Take that over. Everyone. Do we start on some section?
You're breaking up, Mr. Mayor.
What's going on with my
Internet wonky.
Speed. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So does anybody have any further questions of the manager or Mr. Walsh or anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I'll tell you what, I'm going to log out. I'm sorry, Councilor Bouchard, did you have your hand raised?
I did, Mr. Mayor, and I just want to follow up again on the ratio of what the city is spending on this development for road improvement. Almost 4.8 million, and the developers are putting in 449,000. So is this a little slight change in how we've looked at other big developments in the city where the city is putting up doing most of the road work and paying for most of the road work than has been done in other developments where the developer paid mostly for the road improvements that were needed.
I'll try to handle it. So when you've done projects like Horseshoe Pond, the city ended up paying for Commercial Street and making improvements in the area of Fan Road, which is now, I believe, Delta Drive. You've done utility work there. When you've done work on South Main Street, you've done the utility work, you've done the road improvements, you've done Capitol Commons, formerly Capitol Commons parking garage, now the Store Street parking garage. So you've made those investments and those improvements with the idea that the in exchange, but conditioned upon the fact that the development had to occur and be guaranteed to occur to make those investments, so that you'd know there'd be a payback, so the taxpayers would not receive new costs associated with those. And that's what the concept is here: is how much could it potentially pay for the development that was in there. The city council has looked for many years at doing something at the intersection of Whitney and Hoyt, and understood that the only reason to ever actually make that improvement is if you actually had a development that was going to occur and provide tax revenue associated with that. Well, you get into a situation where you have a, did you want to speculatively make those investments on your own and then hope a development would come in after the fact? So raise everybody's taxes, the development comes in after the fact, and then you take those revenues and help the future taxpayers? Or do you try to find a developer who will work with you and do a development project and would use those new revenues to make those improvements that therefore do not raise anybody else's taxes? So that there's two different ways of approaching it. You've always tried to approach it from the fact when you use TIF districts to make sure that the development that is occurring is not going to increase the existing taxpayers' tax burden, and that's what this one does. So if you didn't want to put this amount of dollars, let's say you wanted to cap it at a certain extent, and I see David Rossio's on, and I assume the Laurie Rossio is probably on too. They'll be able to tell you whether or not they'd be able to afford this project if they were, since they are the developers, if they'd be willing to put in $1 million or $2 million, would they be willing to go forward with this project? So that I think that's the answer to the question: is will the developers help pay more than what they're proposing to pay now? In our discussions with them, they could not afford to do this and make the project financially viable for them to make the investments in the property and in the public infrastructure, and make it worthwhile for them to do.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So in short, this is not unusual and not different from projects we have done before.
No, and again, the goal is not to raise the existing taxpayers' tax burden.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Questions for the manager before we move on to our public hearing? Okay, seeing none. At this time, we'll open the public hearing on items 23A through 23E. And looking at the attendees list, I have one person raise their hand right now, and that is Alan Hirschlag. If we could welcome into the meeting, that'd be great.
Can you hear me?
We can. Good evening, Mr. Hirschlag. How are you?
Good evening, members of the council. I'm well, thank you.
Very well.
I want to start out by just mentioning that both my wife and I pay our portion of the school taxes, of our school property taxes, to the Merrimack Valley School District. And I would like to mention that currently all members of the city council pay their school portion of their property taxes to Concord School District. I think that you're being given a number of Hobson's choices, although a Hobson's choice should only be 2 items. I think looking at whether bonding versus TIF and whether or not the developer could pay for it, all cloud the question of whether or not this project could go forward without capturing the school district portion of the property tax. And when I look at the numbers, I believe it can. So if we take out the 1.3 million or 1.5 million dollars for the park, I don't believe any other city park has used TIF district funds to finance a project. If we take out the 4.5 million or 4.6 million dollars in the working capital balance, and we just look at the cost of the road, and we extend that out to 30 years, what you wind up with for the first 5 or 6 years is a deficit of under $15,000 that would have to be made up. And that money could either come from the county or the school district or the Economic Development Reserve, in the Economic Development Reserve Fund. At year 6, after, and I'm getting this from Matt's report from 23A on page 16, it looks like the yearly, the payment for the first bond, $87,503 goes away. And at that point, just using the city portion of the projected assessed value at $9.32 per thousand, the city portion would generate $155,413. And then from year 6 through 30, and these are approximate numbers, the debt on the $4.2 million for the road improvements will come out over 30 years, not 20, would come out to $154,366. I would anticipate, as the Rousios would, and many in the city, I believe, that this project will continue to expand. They'll attract new tenants, new businesses, and that the value of that project will continue to increase over the years. And as the value of that property increases, I think then it would be prudent to go forward with the additional projects, looking at extending Whitney Road. There's also no reason why we can't look to developers to pay a proportional amount to extend Whitney Road over an extended period of time, not all up front. And that would allow the school district to receive the new taxes that are going to be generated by this project from day one. So I think that makes the most sense. The idea that at the end of 20 years or 23 years, we're going to have $4.5 million in a reserve fund at the expense of returning any money to the school district just doesn't make any sense to me. And again, I want to emphasize, by extending the payments out 30 years, this project is affordable using the school portion, using the city portion of the new taxes. I think that's the gist of what I want to speak about, but let me just go quickly through some of my notes. And I apologize if I'm going over information that was discussed earlier, but I was unable to, I got bounced off of Zoom through a guffaw there.
Mr. Hirschlag, take your time and tell us all you need.
Excuse me?
Need to tell us.
I'm sorry. Oh, thank you.
Feel free to complete whatever you need to say.
Yeah. Again, so a lot of times I've been accused I'm against TIF, I'm against development, but I'm truly supportive of the TIF development here. I think it makes a considerable amount of sense. I'm a little concerned based on past performance of how we've utilized TIFs, that we're taking 47 acres and expanding it to 242 acres. But again, I think if we're prudent about this and we're patient, over the shorter term as opposed to the longer term, there'll be additional development at this site, and that will generate the revenue that will allow these other projects to go forward. The extension of Whitney Road. Again, I think it's quite unusual to use TIF district money for a city park. I can't recall when that was ever done in the past. But if that's the will of the council, again, I think being a little bit more patient and waiting till the revenues on the city side are available, again, makes significantly more sense than using school district funds. As you're aware, you've received a letter from the Merrimack Valley School District Administration and School Board, also concerned about having to wait a minimum of 10 years, and as I look at least 20 years to receive any new funding. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to express my concerns. And as always, available. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Well, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's good to have you back. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Hirschlag? Councilor Fennessy.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Hirschlag, for taking my question. So, just so I was trying to follow what your proposal was. Am I to understand that your suggestion is that for purposes of the TIF district in this project, we would not include the school portion of the additional property tax value and simply release that and then extend the payoff period for the TIF district? Is that my understanding of your proposal?
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else have any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Mr. Hirschlag. I appreciate you taking time tonight.
Thank you.
Next I have is David Rossio. Could we bring him in the meeting, please?
I believe I'm unmuted.
You
Am I?
Good evening and welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Boulay and the members of the City Council. So I'm David Rossio, and I'm actually here with Laurie Rossio as well, my wife. And we are Interchange Development, and we speak in favor of the resolutions. First, we want to express our appreciation for all the work done by city staff and to get to this point in the project and to prepare for this hearing. We're excited to bring phase one of the project, which is the market basket and the supermarket, as well as the liquor and wine outlet, exit 17. And based on the feedback and posts on our Facebook page, that's supermarket at exit 17, we are happy to report great support and anticipation for the project from penacook as Concord residents, as well as residents of the surrounding communities. And we're looking forward to the start of phase one construction in April or early May of this year. And we're working on phase two, as I know a question came up, with an urgent care center, as well as a fast food restaurant. And we've had interest in some of the remaining retail as well as the industrial land out back. And just wanted to let you folks know we're here to answer any questions you may have for us. And Carmine Tomas is also here to answer any questions on behalf of Market Basket. Thank you.
Great, thank you, both David and Lori. Who has questions for these folks? Anyone? Councilor Fennessy.
Here, thank you, Mr. Rossio, for taking my question. You mentioned the potential industrial development. Can you just describe for the public where that potentially would be on the site?
Sure. This is to the far southeast portion, sort of an L-shaped tract. So the property wraps around the incinerator property, and the industrial would be the farthest southeast portion of the site.
Quick follow-up. So, Mr. Rossio, would that be the area of the property that would be closest to 93?
Closest to 93, I would say it's equal in distance to 93 as the Market Basket site, but it is further south from the Market Basket site. So in that respect, further away from Route 4.
Okay. All set? All right.
Thank you.
Councilor Mattson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just question, follow up on the industrial site. How large or how many acres is that approximately?
Well, I guess we should speak. There's usable portion of the site is about 6 acres. And just so we understand, there's a Burnham Brook, which is the southern bound of the property, and there's some steep slopes adjacent to that, and an unnamed brook, which runs north-south. Both of those impact the usable portion of the site. So we're anticipating a 45 to 55,000 square foot industrial facility in this portion of the property.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate you being willing to be here this evening. And if we have further questions, I'm sure we'll contact you.
We'll be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
In looking at the attendee list, I have no one else with their hand raised. But wait, we do. First on the list is Julie L. Can we bring in Julie L?
Can you hear me now?
Good evening, welcome.
Hi, thanks everyone. I had put a couple of questions in the chat, or one long question in the chat, and I'm not sure if it pops up in front of you. So thank you for allowing me to just ask. I'm just curious about this project overall with the lighting fixtures. It's a huge complex. I know in general, the neighborhood is very excited about having these stores available, but I'm wondering if you're going to be using efficient lighting that supports a dark sky friendly neighborhood in compliance with HB 585 or in the spirit of HB 585?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, at some portion we'll be discussing it and we'll make sure that question's asked. Is that okay?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, in other words, I want to get you the right answer. And I don't think the folks around the table, I think we're going to want to bring in our engineer to answer that. So, and the engineer's not here right this second. So we will get you an answer, but I just want to make sure the right person answers. Okay, thank you. I see Alan Hirschleich has his hand up again. Can we bring him in again?
I think you can hear me.
Yep, welcome back.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to reiterate that should you accept the proposal that I've proposed, that it will not delay or have any negative impact on this project moving forward, and it will not have any negative impact on the project to be able to meet its debt obligations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Do we have anyone else who wishes to? Councilor Krenvik.
Thank you, Your Honor. Most of these items that are on here, we're not going to be voting on them until April 12th, correct?
That's correct.
Would it be appropriate for Mr. Hirschleich, rather than to just give verbal testimony, to send that to the city clerk to be distributed to the council?
That's up to Mr. Hirschleich, and if he wishes, we always welcome written testimony.
It's very difficult to follow all the financial numbers in a verbal when we're used to looking at them in writing. Thanks.
I appreciate that, and he's anyone is always welcome to submit written testimony. It's always helpful. We have Lois Hamilton. Can we bring in, please? Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Yes, good evening.
Welcome.
I live on. Can you hear me?
We sure can.
Great. Thank you for taking my my call. I live on Hannah Dustin, and have been keeping track of this development as much as I can. I live in the house I grew up in from 1972. So I've seen a lot of changes in the area. I do have some concerns about the lighting, obviously, and the light pollution that I'd love to see the stars and things like that. And then one of my other concerns is the size of the smaller roundabout with the tractor trailers that come out of the incinerator, being able to maneuver that roundabout safely and maintain its integrity. Can you hear me still?
We sure can. We sure can.
Okay, great. And then with I guess former Councilman Hirschlag, it looks like the change in the TIF area would include my house and our properties on Hannah Dustin, and I kind of like his idea of I'm not that young, so in 2037, seeing the change in the equalization of the balance between the TIF, the income, and the benefits. So that would be something that I hope you all look at.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Anybody have any questions?
And then my other question.
Oh, sure.
I have one more question. I'm sorry. Was the change, and I'm not sure if David and Lori talked about this, or if it was change of the 47 acres to 240? Was that the TIF?
I believe so.
I don't know if Matt Walsh can answer that.
Okay.
Thank you.
We've jotted down a bunch of questions. I'm going to try to hopefully recognize the right people to answer them. Thank you again for coming tonight. Is there anyone else wishing to testify tonight? Is there anyone wishing to testify before we? Okay. Could you please bring in David and Lori Rossio? Welcome back. I think you heard some of the questions, and I was told that you might be able to help us out, give us a little insight on the lighting, for instance.
Sure. The proposed lighting is all cutoff fixtures, which is sort of a modern way of shining directly down as well, instead of shining out or up. And that's being proposed for the Market Basket facility as well as the state liquor store.
Okay, so they're in compliance with the dark skies ordinance, statutes, etc.
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Can you speak to the roundabout that was asked, or should we bring Mr. Cedar on?
Oh, my wife Laurie is here. Let's probably speak to that.
Yeah, VHB did the design of the roundabout, both roundabouts for the city, and they double-checked truck turning templates for both roundabouts, particularly because of the amount of trucks that are already on Whitney Road. We also asked them to take another look because Concord Crossing itself has a lot of trucks in and out, including low flatbeds carrying materials to some of our tenants. So they made sure that all of those trucks would be able to handle that roundabout.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your being willing to share those answers. Did I miss any questions from people testifying while we have the Rossios here? Those are the two I wrote down. Okay, before you go, we do have Councilor Rice Hawkins.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you could share a little bit more about the plans within the development for accommodating pedestrians, bicyclists, mass transport. I know when we spoke earlier on that you had taken that into consideration with some of your planning, and wanted to see if you could share that here.
Sure. We discussed pedestrian and bicycle improvements at the planning board level and at the architectural design review level. The site is fully accessible with sidewalks throughout, going from Whitney Road all the way to the front door of Market Basket. There are shoulders on all of the roads to accommodate bicycles, roughly 4 foot. We did 4 foot shoulders on both sides of all the roads. And we are planning a centralized location for a bus stop. It's right in the middle of the development, and that was also looked at by TPAC for their input as well. So I think we've accommodated all of the pedestrian improvements that were asked.
Thank you.
And we have Councilor Pierce.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just going back to the lighting, as the council rep to the planning board, we discussed this at length. And I just wanted to follow up on David Rossio's comments of the latest type of light compliance with tax cuts. So if I remember it correctly, we took care of that.
Okay. Councilor Pierce, you kind of faded out a little bit at the end, but I think we got the message about the planning board and discussions. Anybody else? Well, we still have the Rossios here. I would just note we typically don't use the question and answer portion of the Zoom meeting, but the questions that were posed by Julielle were responded to by our city engineer, just FYI. Okay, so do we have anyone else who wishes to testify? I have no one else in the attendees. Mr. Manager, do you have anybody on the phone?
No phone calls and no emails.
Okay, so seeing no one else with a hand raised or looking to testify, we're going to close the public hearing on those items. And Madam Clerk, if you could read item 23F, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $1,692.39 as a transfer out to capital and authorizing the use of general fund balance in the sum of $1,692.39 for this purpose. Appropriating the sum of $3,192.39 for the Welcome to East Concord Gateway sign, CIP number 24, and accepting the sum of $1,500 in donations from the East Concord Garden Club and the sum of $1,692.39 as a transfer in from the general fund for this purpose.
Great, thank you very much. I just want, before I recognize the manager for this item, I just wanted to reiterate something that Mr. Walsh said earlier, and that is just to note that all of the items that we just had the public hearing on, items 23A through 23E, will be voted on April 12th at our next city council meeting. So with that, Mr. Manager, item 29, please.
Very briefly, Mr. Mayor, the total cost of the sign and installation is estimated at $5,820. That's based on our 2019 pricing, and finance staff has recommended the additional funds be appropriated from the unassigned fund balance for this project. Glad to answer any questions.
Anyone have any questions for the manager? Okay, seeing none, then we'll open the public hearing on this item. And do we have anyone who wishes to testify on this item? Okay, I see no one of the attendees. Mr. Manager, do you have anybody?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, before we move on and before I close it, Madam Clerk, we did receive, I believe, some correspondence regarding this. You just announce who those were?
I don't have any that came in recently for this.
Did anybody else get correspondence from Mr. Johnson and Ms. Silva?
No, Your Honor.
No, Councilor Creditor?
Yes, Your Honor. The only note that I received from Mr. Johnson was with in regards to where the documents were related to this item, but he did not provide any input on the item itself.
Okay, I'll forward those for the record so they can be included in the minutes. Okay, seeing no one wish to testify, no one on the phone, we'll close that public hearing. And Madam Clerk, if you could read item 23G, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $12,000 for contracting with the National League of Cities, race equity and leadership training, and authorizing the use of $12,000 from unassigned fund balance for this purpose. You did receive public testimony from this today, on this today.
Great. Thank you very much. Mr. Manager.
Your Honor, members of the council, we've included this, an appropriation for this. The workshops would include interactive and experiential components, explicit conversations and facilitation to eliminate the connection between individual, institutional, and structural racism and applied learning. And that concludes the comments.
Great. Does anybody have any questions? I'd just like to share with the group that during the action phase, I'm going to ask the council, and I want to say this now so if anybody wishes to testify so that I can let them know. My intention, we have, myself, the manager, and Councilor Hatfield had a Zoom call with the National League of Cities, gave us an excellent background of exactly how to move forward with phase one and assessment and much what the manager just said. They were not able to put together a final proposal at price. And so what I would ask the council to consider doing is simply say, to amend this item to say, to spend up to and no more than $20,000 from the undesignated fund balance for this purpose, instead of the specific number, because we don't have that. Ideally, it won't be that much, but I thought to give us the opportunity to have the discussion and enter a contract and not delay things, we could simply amend it that way. So that's what I'll be asking you to do during the action phase. Anybody have any questions about that? Okay, see none. With that, we'll open the public hearing and anyone wishing to testify. I apologize. There was somebody raised their hand. I think I just missed it.
That was me, Your Honor.
Councilor
So just a quick question regarding that. Do we have any sense of whether the 12,000 appropriation would be sufficient? Do we have a quote or anything?
That's what I was trying to say. Perhaps I didn't say it well. We have yet to get the final proposal from them. I think based on the documentation that they provided thus far, it may very well be absolutely sufficient. I just wanted to make sure we didn't have to come back. And that's why I was trying to provide a little bit of cushion. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. So seeing no other questions or comments, and we'll open the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to speak? I have no one in the attendees list. Mr. Manager, do you have anybody?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, then with that, we will close that public hearing. And Madam Clerk, if you could read item 23H, this is one that's been recessed from last meeting, so we'll come out of recess on this. And Madam Clerk, if you could read the item.
Yes, it's a resolution authorizing the annual appraisal of real estate at market value for RSA 75:8-B.
Thank you much. So we'll reopen the hearing. And is there anyone wish to testify on this item? Seeing no one in attendees, Mr. Manager, do you have anybody?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. I actually do have one quick question. There is a bill pending that was heard this morning in Senate Ways and Means that would halt any reevaluation for 2021. If that bill were to pass, this would be moot, would it not?
That is correct, Your Honor. If you could give me a second here. That was House Bill 552.
That was the House bill, and that was recommended by the House Municipal County Government to be defeated by 18-1 to the full House. But I'm talking about this morning. There was a Senate bill. It was an omnibus bill. I believe it was Senate Bill 102, and that would stop any reevaluations or anything that we were proposing to do here.
Would be moot.
Okay, all right. I believe our senator may be on that bill, and maybe if the city could reach out to our senator just to maybe express what we're trying to do and how that bill might affect us, if that makes sense to anybody else. Okay, with that, open up the public hearing. We'll resume the public hearing. Is there anyone wishing to testify? No attendees, no one on the phone. At this point in time, seeing no one else, we will close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, item 23I, please.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227A.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Members of the council, the committee make the following proposals for the elderly section. The presently the asset levels for both single and married applicants is $95,000. The income thresholds are $34,300 for married, for single, $47,200 for married. For that, the no changes were recommended. For the blind, no changes were recommended. Credits for the let's see. It's quite a long report. So a listing, there was an increase in the Social Security payments, increased by 1.6% in 2020 for cost of living adjustments. And the increase was reported to be about $24 increase per month for single retirees and $40 for married retirees. In addition, the applicants would need to include $1,200 for single and $2,400 for married for stimulus relief payments, which are not exempt from income amounts. After discussion, the committee recommended that an increase to the income levels. The recommendation is to increase the income levels from $34,300 to $36,250 for single applicants and from $47,200 to $50,750 for married applicants. It was noted that the income amounts may decrease in the future to remove the stimulus payments since they're not ongoing. No other changes were recommended. Be glad to answer any questions.
We have questions from Councillor Fennessy.
Thank you. Just a quick question. I'm just curious what the rationale is about the amounts increasing as people age.
You're talking in general in terms of how the city council policy is established?
Yes. Yep.
So the idea was when the city council started first doing this many years ago, the idea was to try to keep people in their homes. And as people's incomes, of course, went down, in reality, as they aged, how to make sure that their ability to pay the tax bills, which are ever increasing, would allow them to stay in their home. So the idea is as the age goes up, the amount that is allowed also goes up, and therefore the people who, once they start getting into the system, can stay in the system. The committee looks at it from the standpoint of making sure we have relatively the same amount of people overall. The total numbers don't fluctuate dramatically. So they very, very closely monitor not only the incomes, but the asset levels to make sure that people don't get priced out of their homes as they get older. Hope that helps.
Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Pierce.
Sorry, I don't know how my hand went up.
Okay. Councilor Nine.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was actually just going to answer Councilor Fennessy's question. The city manager did a very good job. I always summarize it as the committee looks very carefully, as the manager mentioned, the asset and income thresholds to make sure that from year to year, we are not removing a benefit from people who have had it for a number of years. It's usually the difference of, anywhere from $500 in income to a couple $1,000s in assets, and the impact on someone's taxes could, as the manager said, put them in a situation where they can no longer pay taxes and have to make a choice. So it's a monitored process.
Thank you. Councilor Hatfield.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to for the city manager, just to be clear, so the asset level is not changing, but the income is increasing to take account of the stimulus payments.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing no further questions. I will open the public hearing on this item. Anyone wishing to testify? Seeing no attendees with their hands raised, is there anyone on the phone, Mr. Manager?
No calls or emails, Your Honor.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. And Madam Clerk, if you could read item 23J, please.
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title 5 Administrative Code, Chapter 30 Administrative Code, Article 30-3, Boards and Commissions for the Board of Ethics.
Thank you very much, Mr. Manager.
Your Honor, could I introduce the City Solicitor, Mr. Kennedy?
Sure. Mr. Kennedy, welcome.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. This is really just a housekeeping matter. After review, we see that we have this board, which certainly I think only convened once since it was enacted almost 10 years ago now. But we really need to put in term limits like we have on all other committees and boards and commissions in the city. And so that's really the housekeeping that's done here, is to institute term limits on this board, and it helps maintain, interest in the board and being certain that in the event that they are ever needed, we have an active board that's ready, prepared to fulfill their duties.
Any questions for Mr. Kennedy? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public. I'm sorry, Mr. Fennessy, Councilor Fennessy.
Sorry. Just a question for the solicitor. I think you mentioned how this board has only met maybe once in 10 years. Does it make sense to continue to have this board?
That's a decision for the council. At this juncture, we are, and it's certainly that this is ordinance based, so we'd have to go back and look at the ordinance, the ethics ordinance. But certainly, I think that's a discussion the council can have if the majority decide to have that.
Being the one that was behind it, yes, the answer is yes. We should keep it. Anyone else have any questions? Seeing none. So at this time, we'll open the public hearing, and I have no attendee wishing to speak. Mr. Manager, do you have anyone?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. Would anybody be opposed to having item 23K, L, and M read together in one public hearing? The first one's dealing with FEMA dollars, then Gopher dollars, then CARES dollars, all related to COVID type reimbursement. So would anybody be opposed to doing those together?
Nope, it makes sense.
Okay, thank you very much. Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind reading those three, please.
The first one is a resolution appropriating the sum of $93,659.10 for compensation and fringe benefits, and accepting the sum of $93,659.10 in federal emergency management and agency funds for reimbursement of personnel costs related to the deployment of fire department personnel to areas impacted by natural disasters. Second item is a resolution appropriating the sum of $516,784.22 to reimburse for COVID-19 related expenditures, and accepting the sum of $516,784.22 in Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery Program funds. Last is a resolution appropriating the sum of $87,353.96 for election operating expenses incurred by the Concord City Clerk's Office, and accepting the sum of $87,353.96 in elections assistance funding under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act as administered by the state of New Hampshire.
Thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager?
Members of the council, so for the first one, for the FEMA dollars, during calendar year 2020, the department, this is the fire department, provided personnel to support areas of the country impacted by hurricanes and flooding as part of the Massachusetts Task Force 1 program. It's an urban search and rescue team which functions under the auspices of Federal Emergency Management Agency. The federal government reimburses local governments for all the costs associated with the deployment of personnel, including overtime and backfill. The reimbursement for this was $93,659.10. The next item was due to the ongoing pandemic, state and federal support has been made available. This was federal dollars that came down for increased cost to administer various aspects of city operations. And then you have a report, and it's also online, showing all the Gopher funds that were made available. That's the $516,784.22 that has been reimbursed. And the last one is the dollars for the last election that were made available to host the changes we had to do the election. That's the $87,353.96. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Anybody have questions for the manager? Anyone? Okay. Seeing that, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to testify on any one of these three items? So no one in the attendees, Mr. Manager?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, with that, we'll close the public hearing. That takes us to the end of our hearings and brings us to our action phase. If we could bring everyone to the first item, which would be item 29, Madam Clerk.
Yes, it's a resolution appropriating a sum of $1,692.39 as a transfer out to capital and authorizing the use of general fund balance in the sum of $1,692.39 for this purpose, appropriating the sum of $3,192.39 for the Welcome to East Concord Gateway sign, CIP number 24, accepting the sum of $1,500 in donations from the East Concord Garden Club, and the sum of $1,692.39 as a transfer in from the general fund for this purpose.
Thank you very much. Do we have a motion?
Approval.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing Councilor Rice-Hawkins.
I just want to say we're excited for this sign to go up. It has a lot of historical references to industries, natural resources, civic engagement in the area, and was part of the original design when the Exit 16 roundabout went in. So it'll be nice to have it up and active. Encourage you all to support it. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you could call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilor Keach.
Yes.
Councilor Tennyson.
Yes.
Councilor Kretovic.
Yes.
Councilor Matson.
Yes.
Councilor Nyan.
Yes.
Councilor Pierce.
Yes.
Councilor Rice-Hawkins.
Yes.
Councilor Todd.
Yes.
And Councilor Werner.
Yes.
And with that, the motion is adopted and received the necessary 2/3. Madam Clerk, that brings us to item 30, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $12,000 for contracting with the National League of Cities Race Equity and Leadership Training and authorizing the use of $12,000 from unassigned fund balance for this purpose.
Thank you very much. We have a motion to
Move approval.
Second.
excuse me?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. At this time, I'd like to offer an amendment, which would simply say the resolution appropriating the sum of up to $20,000 for contracting with the National League of Cities, et cetera.
Second.
From the undesignated. So the motion is made to amend. The motion has been seconded. Is there any discussion? Councilor Champlin and then Councilor Kenson.
Thanks, Your Honor. Just briefly want to say I heartily endorse this. I think this is a great step forward for the city and for this body and the staff who participate. So I'm eagerly looking forward to starting the process. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor Kenson.
Hi, will this be done via Zoom, this training?
So that's a great question. So the first portion would be an assessment, but it would be time with the council, and that would have to be done via Zoom. And of course, anything that we do would be open to the public, and it would be just like this, where people could attend and watch, and they would not be able to participate. It would be oriented toward the elected officials, but of course, it would be an open meeting where people could watch. There would also be a meeting with the administration and whoever the manager thought appropriate to be there and attend.
Thank you.
But the goal, just to kind of elaborate a little bit more, to be clear, the goal would be to eventually have a phase 2, which we would turn it and open it up back and be more reflective of the community. And it's my hope that by the time we get to that point, we would be back to meeting in public again. And I think it'd be much more fruitful if we were there and all together in the same room, as opposed to trying to have a citywide Zoom. But that's my hope and dream. How's that?
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm going to enthusiastically support this resolution. I'm looking forward to learning. I think we all have a lot to learn. I'm also very looking forward to phase 2 of this process and having some action steps that the city can take to create a more equitable and anti-racist city. So again, I'm excited to support this resolution.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councilor Rice Hawkins.
Thank you. I just want to thank you, Mayor and Councilor Hatfield, for choosing this program, finding it for us. I think one of the things that's true is we're seeing a lot of communities look to engage in this type of activity right now. What I really like about the program that's been presented here tonight is that they have a history of doing this, and it predates any of the experiences from this past year. So I think they've got good history and good orientation to this work that'll really benefit the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we have an amendment pending before us. I apologize, seeing no one else. We have an amendment pending before us. And Madam Clerk, if you call the roll on the amendment.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilor Keach.
Yes.
Councilor Kennison.
Yes.
Councilor Kretovic.
Yes.
Councilor Mattson.
Yes.
Councilor Nyan.
Yes.
Councilor Pierce.
Yes.
Councilor Rice Hawkins. Councilor Todd.
Yes.
And Councilor Werner.
Yes.
With that, the amendment is adopted. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll on the item as amended.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilor Keach.
Yes.
Councilor Kennison.
Yes.
Councilor Kretovic.
Yes.
Councilor Mattson.
Yes.
Councilor Nyan.
Yes.
Councilor Pierce.
Yes.
Councilor Rice Hawkins.
Yes.
Councilor Todd.
Yes.
And Councilor Werner.
Yes.
Have received the necessary 2/3. The motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, item 32, please.
It's a resolution modifying the elderly exemption for the city of Concord pursuant to the provisions of RSA 7227A.
Move approval.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Councilor Hatfield.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank both staff and the committee for looking back at the reasons for denial last year and making some adjustments and taking into consideration in their proposal the stimulus payments. I think that will be helpful, and I really appreciate that effort. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Counselor Keach,
Yes.
Counselor Kennison,
yes,
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Mattson,
yes,
Counselor Nyan,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
yes,
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
yes.
With that, the motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, do you find yourself repeating our names as you go to sleep at night or during the day?
24/7, I really do. I just ramble.
With that, could you read item 33, please?
It's an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances, Title 5 Administrative Code, Chapter 30 Administrative Code, Article 30-3 Boards and Commissions for the Board of Ethics.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion?
Move approval?
Motion made, second to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll, please?
Counselor Bouchard,
Yes.
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Counselor Champlin,
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy,
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Counselor Hatfield,
Yes.
Counselor Keach,
Yes.
Counselor Kennison,
yes,
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Mattson,
yes,
Counselor Nyan,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Yes.
With that, the motion is approved. Madam Clerk, item 34, please.
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $93,659.10 for compensation and fringe benefits and accepting the sum of $93,659.10 in federal emergency management agency funds for reimbursement of personnel costs related to the deployment of fire department personnel to areas impacted by natural disasters.
Approval?
second,
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Counselor Bouchard,
Yes.
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Counselor Champlin,
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy,
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Counselor Hatfield,
Yes.
Counselor Keach,
Yes.
Counselor Kennison,
yes,
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Mattson,
yes,
Counselor Nyan,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Yes.
And with that, the motion have received necessary 2/3. The motion is adopted. Madam Clerk, you want to take a drink of water?
I'm good, thank you.
How about item 35, please?
It's a resolution appropriating the sum of $516,784.22 to reimburse for COVID-19 related expenditures, accepting the sum of $516,784.22 in Governor's Office for Emergency Relief and Recovery Program funds for this purpose.
move approval,
Second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, one more time.
Counselor Bouchard,
Yes.
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Counselor Champlin,
Yes.
Counselor Fennessy,
Yes.
Counselor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Counselor Hatfield,
Yes.
Counselor Keach,
Yes.
Counselor Kennison,
yes,
Counselor Kretovic,
Yes.
Counselor Mattson,
yes,
Counselor Nyan,
Yes.
Counselor Pierce,
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Yes.
With that, the motion is adopted and received the necessary 2/3. Last but not least, item 36, please.
It is a resolution appropriating the sum of $87,353.96 for election operating expenses incurred by the Concord City Clerk's Office and accepting the sum of $87,353.96 in elections assistance funding under the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security CARES Act as administered by the state of New Hampshire for this purpose.
Move approval?
Second.
Motion made and seconded to approve this item. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard,
Yes.
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Councilor Champlin,
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy,
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilor Keach, Councilor Keach,
Councilor Keach, you're on mute.
Yes, sorry. Yes.
Councilor Kennison,
Yes.
Councilor Credit,
Yes.
Councilor Mattson,
Yes.
Councilor Ryan,
Yes.
Councilor Pierce,
Yes.
Councilor Rice Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
and Councilor Werner.
Yes.
With that, a motion is adopted, having received necessary 2/3. Are you all comfortable with keep just kind of plow through the very end, or do we need a break? Okay. plow through. So that takes us, we have no reports this evening. New business, I have one item I'd like to discuss, and I'd like to recognize Councilor Werner, who would like to do an introduction of a proclamation we're going to read. Councilor?
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm proud to say that the City of Concord will be launching Weatherize Concord next week. You will see, I think, towards the end of this week, banners going up on South Main Street and Loudon Road promoting the Weatherize Concord program. And really the goals of Weatherize Concord are consistent with the goals that we have set in terms of our renewable energy initiatives, and will benefit our residents in terms of saving them money and also our carbon footprint and reducing our greenhouse gases over time. And so it's a multi-pronged effort in terms of energy efficiency, which certainly is a important part of our strategic plan that we passed as part of the resolution. And we're very proud to partner with our utilities, Unitil and Liberty, to be able to offer this program. About 40 houses a year, properties a year rather, get take advantage of being retrofitted or weatherized. And our goal over the next year, actually towards the end of the year, is to double that to at least 80, perhaps more. We'll see what we can do. But that is our goal. And again, it is really beneficial to the citizens of Concord. I want to thank the administration for their support. We will have a formal kickoff of this initiative next Tuesday at 11 a.m. It'll be a virtual event. I also want to thank my colleague, Councilor Hatfield, for helping to fashion the proclamation announcing this program that the mayor is about to read. But you'll see a lot more of this program. You'll see the banners. We'll have the event next week, and we'll be working across city government and within the community to publicize the opportunity here. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councilor Hatfield.
Thank you. I wanted to recognize the volunteers who serve with Councilor Werner and I on the Concord Energy and Environment Advisory Committee. It's really a very dedicated group of folks, and they came up with this idea to try to make sure that businesses, residents, and other folks in Concord know about the programs that are available and know about the benefits that they can provide, as Councilor Werner said, in terms of savings, improving the air quality in buildings, and improving the safety in a lot of situations. So it's been exciting to work with this group of folks, and they are ready to roll this out. So if you are willing to have a cool sign out in front of your house that says "Let's Weatherize," just let one of us know, and we'd be happy to deliver it to you. So thank you very much.
You got a few volunteers there. So with that, appreciate the introduction. So this is a proclamation announcing the Weatherizing Concord campaign. Whereas the city of Concord has a goal of transitioning to 100% renewable energy and has adopted a strategic plan for implementing the goal to reduce energy costs and help address climate change. And whereas Concord Renewable Energy Plan recognizes that energy efficiency is a key component in meeting our renewable energy goals and can help residents and businesses reduce their energy costs. And whereas to increase awareness of the resources available and to spur action, the Concord Energy and Environment Advisory Committee is launching a Weatherize Concord campaign. And whereas the goal of the campaign is to improve the energy efficiency of buildings in Concord while reducing energy costs and harmful emissions. And whereas New Hampshire Saves is an important resource for residents, businesses, and others to learn about programs offered by Libby Utilities and Unitil Energy Systems to help building owners and renters reduce costs and increase efficiency of their buildings and operations. Now therefore be resolved. Therefore be I, Jim Bullion, Mayor of the City of Concord, to hereby encourage residents, nonprofits, schools, and businesses in Concord to participate in the Weatherize Concord campaign and recognize the important role of community partners, Liberty Utilities, Unitil, and thank them for their participation in Weatherize Concord campaign. So I look forward. It sounds exciting, and I think, as Councilor Hatfield said, a big thank you to all of the volunteers and members of the committee who put this together. So thank you. With that, takes us, we have no unfinished business, takes us the comments and requests by councilors. Who would like to share? First hand up is Councilor Kretovic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Just thank you to the members of the City Council for the City Manager's review. We do have a couple of councilors that are still working on their review, and I'm hoping we can wrap that up by Friday. If you can make sure that you complete your surveys. We're trying to be very timely this year so that our review with the City Council or City Manager doesn't take place during the budget cycle. And there is quite a bit of effort and administrative piece that needs to come together in order to organize all the details that are on those reviews. So I kindly thank you for your attention and look forward to our conversation with the City Manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that effort. Councilor Champlin.
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to remind folks that the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness is holding its annual Superfest Soup Festival and fundraiser on Saturday, March 20th. Due to the COVID situation, last year the event was changed. This year it will continue to be changed and will be held from 3 to 5:30 p.m. at White Park. You can go online and order one of the soups that have been, or a number of the soups that are being donated by Concord area restaurants. You can, if the weather permits, you can eat it nearby or take it home. And this is a great event and a great organization for the communities to support, which an organization that not only runs the Homeless Resource Center year-round, but also, of course, runs, manages, and staffs with volunteers and paid staff our emergency winter overflow shelter. So Superfest is on March 20th, 3 to 5:30 p.m. Go online to the Concord Coalition to End Homelessness website, concordhomeless.org. And click on the link to Superfest registration. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Councilor Rice-Hawkins.
Thank you. I want to remind folks that it is Maple Month, and we have 4 maple producers here in Concord. Of course, up here in Ward 10, Maple Tree Farm, our good friend Dean Wilbur. So they are scheduling visits for the next 2 weekends, in addition to just selling their products year-round. But our maple producers were obviously hit pretty hard last spring as code was coming down, and we'll also be facing that again this spring. So get scheduled early to get in there. And then I just wanted to give a shout out to our new fire chief, Sean Brown, also proud Ward 10 constituent and resident, and excited to see his service to the city continue.
Thank you. Councilor Mattson, did you have your hand up?
Yes, I just wanted to say that I got some favorable feedback from some constituents in my area. They have been downloading the new app for Concord. They like it, and they're glad that the city made it available to us. So, thank you.
Appreciate that feedback. Anyone else have anything to share? I just have one question for the group. I'm not looking for an answer right now, but if you could think about your schedule and just send a note back to our city clerk as to what your preference would be. But I'm really excited about working with the National League of Cities, and I think for us to really truly get something out of it, much like the councilors have spoke about this evening, we're going to have to invest some time. They gave us two different choices. One is a one-time block, if you will, 3 to 4 hours. And then the second was more over 2 days, that would be more like 6 to 8 hours. And it really has to do with how in depth we wanted to go, what we're going to be. So once we get the proposal from them and see the specs, I'm going to send that out to everybody and make sure everybody sees it. But what I'm looking for is your level of where you'd like to be in terms of, do you think we can do it all in one block, 3 to 4 hours, or do you think we need to do a deeper dive, 6 to 8 hours over 2 days? So as I said, as I get more information, I'm going to send that to you. And then if you could just think about your level of commitment and time and ability, what's available to you, then if you could let Janice know, that'd be great. So Councilor Grady Sexton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to a extraordinary young student from Kennett High School who joined us earlier today. She had to jump off for a work commitment, but she is part of the AP government class and has a real interest in local and city government, which I absolutely love. And it was really nice that she was able to join us today. So their local government and city government is very interesting, and it's great to have young students that believe that to be true.
Amen. Anybody else have anything you want to share? Okay. So with that, then, Mr.
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So we do have one suspense item. Madam Clerk, would you, well, first of all, can we get a motion to suspend the rules to take up suspense item 1?
So moved.
Motion made. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilor Bouchard,
Yes.
Mayor Boulay,
Yes.
Councilor Champlin,
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy,
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton,
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield,
Yes.
Councilor Keach,
Yes.
Councilor Kennison,
Yes.
Councilor
Yes.
Councilor Mattson,
Yes.
Councilor Nyan,
Yes.
Councilor Pierce,
Yes.
Councilor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Councilor Todd,
Yes.
and Councilor Werner.
Yes.
And with that, we motion is approved. We have item suspense 1 before us. Madam Clerk, if you wouldn't mind reading item suspense 1.
It's a report from the Deputy City Solicitor regarding the Concord Fire Officers Association Collective Bargaining Agreement.
Thank you very much. Mr. Manager?
Your Honor, members of the council, as you know, we've been negotiating with the Concord Fire Officers Association, Local 3195, for a contract, a 3-year labor contract. This is the last of the labor unions that you'll be negotiating with for a little while. You have all the rest of them under contract. And the idea was to change particularly the health insurance program to align with all the other health insurance programs and be able to save dollars, the taxpayer, actually significant dollars in years going forward. The union voted on this proposal yesterday. And under the RSAs, you have 30 days to take action on a tentative agreement, which we've negotiated with the union. And being that they voted on it, you've always had the union vote first, and then it comes to you for action. So in being that, and what you've tried to do recently over the last 6 months or a year plus, actually probably over like maybe more than a year, is put these on the agenda in advance of the council meeting and then so the public's aware of it and take a vote on it. In this case, we knew that under that practice, there would come a day sometime when to meet the 30-day requirement, you'd have to take action on it more quickly, and that's where we are today. If you wait till the next city council meeting, I think you're out 34 or so days. So to stay within the RSAs, the city solicitor and I suggest that you take a vote on this evening. It is out there for people to see, and all the cost information is there. Be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Manager, even though this came as a suspense item, this will be listed on the website just with all the other items. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. And the minutes obviously will show all the information.
Thank you very much. Anybody else? Any other questions? Council Champlin.
Thank you, Your Honor. Sorry about using old school technology. Mr. City Manager, is there any way for us moving forward to urge our unions to try to coordinate their votes in such a way that we can comply with the 30-day notice and still be transparent for taxpayers and in the community relative to our contract negotiations?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is, and we tried it on this one. They ran into the union itself ran into the problem of they have their own rules in terms of notification of their members before they took a vote. They had an error related to that, making that notification. So they were trying to do it last week, which would have allowed us to put it on Wednesday or Thursday's agenda. So they asked to make it happen, they actually had a special meeting on Sunday and took the vote on Sunday, which is very unusual, but they wanted to get it done so it'd be ready for the city council's agenda. So being that you always go after, they did try to do it, but they were trying to follow their own rules at the same time, and they got tripped up on that. And I think it was a very innocent move. It's just they wanted to make sure they're staying in conformance with their own rules also. That's why it's very unusual. I don't see it hopefully happening again, but it did occur.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. City Manager. It's just unfortunate because I'll speak for myself, and I think I speak for everyone else, although that's the mayor's role. But we certainly have been trying to be transparent in these processes and responsive to the public, and it's unfortunate that this has occurred. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Hatfield.
Thank you. Mr. Manager, I was wondering if you know, in terms of the cost of the contract, how it compares to what we had budgeted?
Sorry, just give me 1 minute. I have my notes here.
You asked this evening?
I'll have it. I did actually receive so many emails this evening. I have it right here.
Mr. Manager, can I help with this one?
I just found it, but go right ahead.
I was going to say that this contract really starts on July 1st of this coming year. So we're in the process of preparing that budget along with the rest of the budget items that we have going forward for FY22. So
So, so that's correct. This is in line with all the parameters that you did set out for all the goals for accomplishing costs. So everything is in there, is in those. So the savings you are trying to achieve are projected out through all the health insurance savings, and the costs associated with the certifications and the cost of living are in line with all the guidelines that you had set out. I just
Thank you.
the numbers. You're welcome.
And Mr. Mayor, just in terms of the timing, I certainly support the change in policy that you drove last year to put these items on the agenda. And it sounds to me like everyone involved made every effort to make that happen this time. And I am personally comfortable with moving forward. I think it's unfortunate, but these things do arise, and this is certainly an important contract. So I am comfortable with moving forward.
Thank you very much. Councilor Royce Hawkins.
Thank you. I'm also comfortable with moving forward and do appreciate the union's attempt to get it in time for this meeting. Is there anything that prevents us, though, from coming back in 1 to 2 weeks for a standalone vote on this?
No, you could always have a special meeting for something like this if you wanted to.
I'll just say that, the transparency was something that was really important to myself, and I think the council. I think that I've got a reasonable explanation for why it happened. I don't see it as a trend moving forward. And I think that the fact that everything will be posted on the web, I'm comfortable voting tonight, but obviously it's something we want to pay attention to going forward. Anyone else? Okay. I just want to say thank you to our deputy city solicitor and the whole team of individuals working on this contract, as well as the CFOA, and put together, I think, a contract that is fair to both the employees as well as to the taxpayers. So I appreciate that very much and all your hard work. At this time, I'd like to entertain a motion to accept the report approving the cost items in a 3-year contract collective bargaining agreement between the City of Concord and the Concord Firefighters Association Local 3195, covering the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second to approve this. Any further discussion? Seeing none, are we ready for the vote? Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Yes.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilor Keach.
Yes.
Councilor Kennison.
Yes.
Councilor Krivik.
Yes.
Councilor Mattson.
Yes.
Councilor Nyan.
Yes.
Councilor Pierce.
Yes.
Councilor Rice Hawkins.
Yes.
Councilor Todd.
Yes.
And Councilor Werner.
Yes.
With that, the motion is adopted. So that takes, I have no more further items on the agenda, unless I've missed something. I don't think so. Seeing none. Anybody have anything else for the good of the organization before we take a motion to adjourn? Seeing none, I just want to say thank you to everybody for their patience. There was more public hearings we've had in a long time, and I think we did real well to get through them all. So thanks everybody for their patience and understanding. This Zoom world is hopefully someday it will end. With that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
I think everybody
Second.
makes a motion and everybody seconds. So with that, Madam Clerk, if you can call the roll, please.
Councilor Bouchard.
Yes.
Mayor Boulay.
Oh, yes.
Councilor Champlin.
Jawohl.
Councilor Fennessy.
Yes.
Councilor Grady Sexton.
Yes.
Councilor Hatfield.
Yes.
Councilor Keach.
Affirmative.
Councilor Kennison.
May we?
Councilor Krivik.
Yes.
Councilor Mattson.
Yes.
Councilor Nyan.
Yes.
Councilor Pierce.
Yes.
Counselor Rice Hawkins,
Yes.
Counselor Todd,
Yes.
and Counselor Werner.
Aye.
With that, we adjourn. Be safe, stay healthy, and we'll see everybody real soon.
Bye-bye, folks.
Bye.